Hi again, book nerds. I did exactly what I thought I was going to do, which was make a couple of videos and then get busy and too perfectionistic and all the things. And too sad by the fact that it was the end of February and early March and it was still really cold. Um, and then I stopped doing videos. So I'm back. Um, Today we're just going to do a quick TBR video just to give myself a little momentum. Next week I'm going to release some of the reviews that I did for the stuff I read in February. So it's like really old, but I still read the things. I'm still going to talk about them. And hopefully we'll build up a little momentum and maybe get a little ahead of the curve so that I don't, if I miss something, I will have, some footage to put up somewhere. We're not going to do the TBR game for a couple of reasons. The first is I am not quite sure where my playing cards went. I'd love to blame it on my 2-year-old, but I think I'm actually the one that misplaced them. So what are you going to do? The biggest reason, though, is actually because the first step on my TBR is, so I read A Court of Thorn and Roses, finally. Been recommended to me forever, and I read Throne of Glass, loved that, and for some reason just never picked up ACOTAR. The first couple chapters just always threw me off. I don't know why. Like, I kept trying to read it over and over again, and like the first 2 or 3 chapters it was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So I finally downloaded the audiobook and pushed through, and now I'm committed. So I'm currently reading book 2. My plan for this month is to at least do book 2 and 3, probably book 4, but we'll, no promises made because life gets away from me sometimes, and I always think that I'm going to read like 7 books in a month, and if I get 4, it's a good day. So that's the first thing. And so that's going to take up most of the month, so I don't want to add like a TBR game thing. The other thing I'm reading this month, which I did start last month, obviously, is The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. This was the book that my students at my high school chose as their book club read. I don't think they're going to really connect with it as much as I am, because I am the mother of a 2-year-old, and when this book starts, the main character, her daughter, is just a few months younger than my son is now, because he's not actually quite 2. He's close. He's very close. And in this book, the main character, her name is Frida, and she has a very bad day, as she calls it, and she loses custody of her daughter. And this is set in like this kind of dystopian near future. And she is given the opportunity to get her daughter back by joining this like retraining center or training, it's like re-education center to teach her and these other mothers how to be good mothers, quote unquote. So far, I'm really enjoying it, but I have a lot of thoughts, and it gives me what I like to call itchy brain, which is like not quite triggering, but like whatever the step before triggered is. Like, so I call it itchy brain because I'm like, oh, feelings, oh. So I'm not done yet, so this is not a full review, but so far, having a good time. We'll tell you more about it later. The other book that I'm going to read back here is Red Tigress, which is the second book of the Blood Heir series. Despite being a little underwhelmed by Blood Heir, I still kind of want to see what's going on, where she's going to go with the story. I also found out that like book 3 is already out. I feel like when I first looked up, it was like, oh, it came out in March, and then I looked it up again, and it was coming out in May, and then they switched it back to March. I don't know what was happening on Amazon. They were confused. So all 3 books are out, so I could tear through the series this month. We'll see how it goes. I'm listening to this on audio to kind of, I really like the narrator for the audiobook. She also did, Another book that I really enjoyed that I'm going to put up on the screen here because I cannot remember what it's called, but I really liked it, but apparently not enough to remember things. This particular narrator for this book and the other book that I was talking about, I think she kind of, because her narration is so good, it kind of like bumps up the quality of the books a little bit. So, and then finally, I'm going to try, emphasis on try, to read The Silent Patient. One of my students read this kind of because I suggested it to her based on like other booktubers, not because I had actually read it, but she read it and she had mixed feelings about it, so I now want to know what's going on. Like, she didn't like the twist at the end, and I'm interested to see if I agree with her or if I'm like, no, it's perfect. I've already read a chapter or two. I'm really, it's a quick read. Like, it's very short chapters, very like, punchy. So at least there's that. Like, it's nice to have something that like is like a nice, quick, fast read. So, like I said, it's these. So these are the 3 books that I'm thinking about, as well as the at least 2 more in the ACOTAR series, which I don't have because I have them on my Kindle. And I've had them on my Kindle forever, because a few years ago, or months ago, I don't know, time has no meaning, but I think it was a few years ago, a lot of them went on sale for like $2.99 or $3.99. And so I went ahead and bought them knowing that I do like Sarah J. Maas, and then just never read them. Like, I don't know, it just happens sometimes. So it's hard when you like can't get into it, even when you're like, I know if I could just get past this like 1 or 2 chapters, I'd be on board. And I finally, like I said, for book 1, I finally got past that. I will say, if you're a librarian and you're thinking about having these in your school, they're real smutty. Which happened with Throne of Glass, but at least it was, well, but it didn't happen until like book 4 or 5. But these are smutty to begin with, and like definitely book 2 is just like, oh yeah, it's just gonna start with a lot of smut. Like, to the point where it made me feel like a prude, because it was like, yeah, okay, we get it, like, smut, cool. Can I have some plot now, please? But, I know some people like that. I'm not against smut. I just sometimes, when it's distracting from the plot that I would like to get into, sometimes I'm like, yeah, okay, move on. So just keep that in mind if you are a school librarian. Definitely, these should not be in your middle school library. It's, you're going to get some looks. And I don't even say that from like a censorship perspective. I just look back at my 7th grade self, and I would have been uncomfortable reading them, like, in 7th grade. I probably have some friends that would have, well, I know I have some friends, because I know friends of mine who started reading like Harlequin romances when they were like 12. For every one of those, you're going to have another kid who's like, oh, this makes me feel weird and I don't like it. So, but most kids are pretty good about self-selecting that kind of material, but maybe save this one for the high school level if you are going to get it. Which is, old news. I feel like everybody already knows everything about this series, and I'm like the last person to read it who is even remotely interested in Sarah J. Maas. So that's the secret to this YouTube, is like none of it's going to be super groundbreaking. It's just stuff that I want to read, not necessarily what's currently super trendy. Which is probably why I will never have a huge audience, but that's okay. I'm doing this for fun and to learn some new skills. I'm very bad at outros. I need to learn the skill of outroing properly. But I at least made a new video, so that's something. If you are inclined, like the video, subscribe if you enjoy hearing me ramble. Next week, like I said, I'm gonna post the footage that I took from a long time ago. I actually have most of the footage from like my February reads. I just never actually put it together. That's where we're gonna try, that'll be next week's video, and then maybe I'm thinking about doing like the unpopular opinions tag, which is, looks really fun. And just hopefully stick with it, try to put something out every week. So thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.